What happens when a rising star is pushed too far on live television? When personal boundaries are crossed and the cameras keep rolling? This is exactly what unfolded in one of the most shocking moments in daytime TV history, a confrontation no one saw coming during an interview with Grammy-nominated artist Teddy Swims. What began as a casual conversation turned into a tense exchange about respect, privacy, and what happens when an interview spirals out of control. The moment left viewers stunned, and it quickly spread across social media like wildfire. It was a typical afternoon taping of the Kelly Clarkson Show when Teddy Swims walked onto the stage. The audience erupted with applause as he took his seat, his warm smile lighting up the studio. Kelly Clarkson, ever the friendly and charismatic host, greeted him with enthusiasm. "Teddy, welcome to the show." "It's so great to have you here," she said, leaning in with genuine warmth. "Your new album has been absolutely crushing the charts, and that voice of yours, my God, where does it even come from?" Teddy chuckled, settling into his chair. "Thank you so much for having me, Kelly. It's been such a wild ride." "The voice? I think it comes from all those years singing in church, learning to really feel the music instead of just performing it." Kelly nodded in appreciation, briefly pausing as her producer spoke through her earpiece with the next segment cue. Then she shifted gears. "I have to ask because our viewers are always curious. Your transformation over the years has been pretty incredible. You've lost a significant amount of weight, and I know that's been part of your journey." The comment lingered awkwardly in the air. Teddy's smile faded just a touch, but he kept his composure. "Yeah," he said slowly. "It's been a journey for sure. Health and wellness became really important to me, especially with touring and everything." Kelly pressed on, seemingly unaware of the change in energy. "I mean, you look fantastic now. It must feel amazing to have that confidence on stage. Did you do it for your career, or was it more personal?" Teddy shifted slightly, his tone tightening. "It was personal," he replied. "Health should always be personal." But Kelly continued pushing. "Let's be honest, image matters in this industry. Did your team pressure you at all? Record labels can be intense about these things." This time, Teddy's expression hardened. "My team has always supported me as an artist and as a person," he said firmly. "They never made my worth conditional on my appearance." The audience sensed the tension, unsure where things were headed. But Kelly misread the moment entirely and pushed even harder. "Come on, you can be real with me," she insisted. "When you were heavier, didn't you feel like maybe doors weren't opening the way they should have? The music industry can be brutal. And now that you've transformed yourself, surely you see the difference in how people treat you." The studio fell silent. Teddy stared at her, his breathing heavy. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but edged with hurt. "Kelly, I need you to understand something. My weight was never about my music. My talent was never tied to my size. The doors that opened for me did so because of my voice, my songwriting, my ability to connect with people. Not because I fit someone else's image of what a musician should look like." Kelly seemed to realize she had crossed a line, but instead of backing off, she doubled down. Of course," she said quickly. "I'm not saying your talent changed. I'm just saying the industry probably receives you differently now. That's the reality of show business." Teddy shook his head. "No, Kelly, that's not reality. That's a toxic mindset, and people like you keep it alive when you suggest my success is tied to my weight loss instead of my work. You're reducing my journey to something shallow." At that moment, it became clear this interview had completely gone off the rails, and there was no going back. "You should be proud of what you've accomplished," Kelly insisted, trying to steer the moment back under control, but Teddy was already rising from his chair. "What I should be proud of," he said, his voice firm, "is my music. What I should be proud of is the connection I make with fans who see themselves in my story. What I should be ashamed of is sitting here and letting you reduce my entire career to whether or not I lost weight." Kelly blinked, visibly stunned as she tried to recover her composure. Her media training kicked in. "Teddy, please sit down. I think we're having a miscommunication. I never meant to suggest your talent was tied to your appearance." "That's exactly what you suggested," Teddy cut in sharply. "You asked if my team pressured me. You asked if doors opened differently. You asked if I did it for my career. Every single question you've asked is about how my body supposedly affects my music, instead of asking me anything about the music itself." The tension in the studio had grown thick enough to feel. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances as signals crackled through their headsets. but no one dared cut away. They knew they were witnessing something explosive. Kelly's cheeks flushed as she struggled to regain control. "Teddy, I think you're being a little sensitive here," she said, forcing a tight smile. "This is daytime television. We talk about transformations all the time. I've been open about my own weight journey. I thought you'd appreciate the opportunity to inspire people who might be struggling with similar issues." "Sensitive?" Teddy repeated, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Kelly, do you hear yourself? You're telling me I'm being sensitive for not wanting my artistic achievements overshadowed by commentary about my body, and now you're trying to spin this into some kind of inspirational moment I should be grateful for?" The audience sat frozen, many shifting uncomfortably as the emotional temperature continued to rise. This was not the lighthearted afternoon segment they had expected. Behind the cameras, Kelly's producer frantically waved for her to move on, but Kelly pressed forward, her tone growing defensive. "I'm just trying to have an honest conversation here," she said. "Your fans see your transformation. They're inspired by it. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that alongside your musical success." "There's everything wrong with it when you make it the focus," Teddy fired back, his southern accent sharpening as emotion fueled his words. "We've spent 10 minutes talking about my body. Not one single question about the songs on my album. Nothing about the stories behind them, the collaborations, the writing process. Nothing about my music. Just my appearance." Kelly's patience snapped. "I was getting to the music," she protested. "This is how interviews work, Teddy. We talk about your life, your journey, all aspects of who you are." "No," Teddy replied, unwavering. "This is how bad interviews work. Good interviews focus on the work, the craft, the message. They don't reduce artists to their physical appearance and then gaslight them when they speak up about it." The word hit the air like a grenade. Gaslight. Kelly's eyes flared. "Excuse me? Did you just accuse me of gaslighting you on my own show? I have been nothing but supportive and complimentary. I've been trying to celebrate your success, and now you're attacking me for it." "I'm not attacking you," Teddy said calmly. "I'm calling out harmful behavior. There's a difference. You asked if my team pressured me about my weight. You implied doors opened because I changed how I look. You framed my success around my body. And now you're telling me I should be grateful and less sensitive when I object to it." Kelly suddenly stood from behind her desk, something she rarely did. Her voice hardened. "You know what, Teddy? Maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe you need to understand that when you're in the public eye, people are going to notice changes in your appearance. That's part of being a celebrity. And maybe you need to understand," Teddy shot back as he stood too, "that being a celebrity doesn't mean I have to accept being reduced to my physical appearance, especially not by someone who claims to support artists in their journeys." The studio was silent now. Even the audience seemed to have forgotten to breathe. A few people reached for their phones, desperate to record what was unfolding, even though recording was normally forbidden during tapings. Kelly's voice sharpened further. "I have supported thousands of artists on this show. I've given platforms to people who needed them. Don't you dare question my commitment to supporting artists." "Then act like it," Teddy replied simply. "Ask me about my music. Ask me about the messages in my songs. Ask me about the fans who tell me my music helped them survive their worst days. Ask me anything other than whether I look better now than I used to." "Fine," Kelly said coldly, her voice like ice. "Let's talk about your music," Kelly said sharply. "Let's talk about how your newfound confidence, which clearly comes partly from your physical transformation, has affected your stage presence and your ability to connect with audiences." Teddy stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? Even when you try to ask about my music, you still tie it back to my weight loss. You literally cannot help yourself." Kelly lifted her chin defensively. "I'm trying to have a nuanced conversation about how personal growth affects artistic expression," she argued, though her voice lacked conviction. Teddy shook his head. "No, you're trying to justify your fixation on my appearance by dressing it up as artistic analysis. Personal growth and weight loss are not the same thing, Kelly. I've been growing as an artist for years, long before I lost a single pound. My confidence on stage comes from years of performing, from connecting with audiences, from honing my craft, not from fitting into smaller clothes." Behind the cameras, Kelly's producer was now openly making frantic cutting motions across his throat, begging her to wrap the segment, but Kelly ignored him completely. Look, I think we need to agree to disagree, she said stiffly. Let's move on to your upcoming tour dates. No, Teddy said firmly. We're not moving on. We're not agreeing to disagree. What just happened here was wrong. And you trying to sweep it under the rug and jump to promotional talking points is exactly the problem. The audience watched, mesmerized. No one had ever seen anything like this on daytime television. Kelly's face flushed, a mix of embarrassment and anger tightening her expression. Teddy, I think you need to calm down. This is getting out of hand. I am calm, he replied in a steady voice. What's getting out of hand is your inability to acknowledge that your line of questioning was inappropriate and harmful. What's getting out of hand is your refusal to understand why reducing an artist to their physical appearance is a problem. I never reduced you to your physical appearance, Kelly protested. I complimented your transformation while also acknowledging your talent. You spent the first 10 minutes of this interview talking about my body, Kelly. 10 minutes. You asked if my team pressured me to lose weight. You asked if my career benefited. You implied the industry treats me differently now. Every single question was about my appearance, not my artistry. Kelly's frustration boiled over. You know what, Teddy? I think you came on this show looking for a fight. I think you wanted to create drama, and now you're twisting my words to make me look like the villain here. The accusation struck the room like lightning. Teddy's expression shifted, first shocked, then hurt, then resolute. Looking for a fight? He repeated slowly. Kelly, I came on your show to talk about my music, to connect with your audience, to share the stories behind my songs. I came here with nothing but respect for you and your platform. But what I found was a host who seems more interested in my pant size than my passion. That's not fair and you know it, Kelly snapped. I've built my career on supporting artists and celebrating their journeys. Don't you dare suggest I don't care about music. Then prove it, Teddy challenged. Right now. Ask me about my music. Ask me about the song I wrote for my grandmother before she passed. Ask me about the track that deals with addiction and recovery. Ask me about the collaboration with the gospel choir from my hometown. Ask me about anything that actually matters. Kelly paused, thrown off by the direct challenge. A long, uncomfortable silence passed before she finally said, I was planning to ask about those things. But even she didn't sound like she believed it. Teddy didn't let her escape. After another 10 minutes of asking if I feel more confident in my body now, after asking me to give weight loss tips to your viewers, after digging into my workout routine and diet plan, Kelly said nothing. She didn't have to. The silence said it all. Teddy shook his head, disappointment clouding his face. You know what the worst part of this is, Kelly? He said quietly. I actually looked up to you. I grew up listening to your music. I watched your journey in this industry, how people criticized you for your appearance, how you overcame it. I thought you would understand better than anyone why this conversation is so damaging, Teddy said, his voice low but steady. Kelly's expression softened slightly, but the defensiveness in her eyes remained. I do understand, Teddy, she insisted. That's why I thought you'd want to talk about overcoming those challenges. But I never asked to overcome anything, Teddy replied, emotion rising in his voice. My body was never a challenge to overcome. My body was never an obstacle to my music. The only challenge was an industry that made me feel like it should be. The studio audience was completely silent, hanging on to every word. Some were visibly moved by the raw honesty of the moment. I've spent years building my confidence as an artist, Teddy continued. Years learning to let my music speak for itself. Years trying to show people that talent comes in all shapes and sizes. And in 15 minutes, you've managed to undermine all of that by suggesting that my success is somehow tied to my physical transformation. Kelly's producer was now frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, signaling to cut to commercial, but neither host nor guest seemed aware of anything except their confrontation. I never said your success was tied to your weight loss, Kelly protested, but her voice was weaker now. You didn't have to say it directly, Teddy replied. Every question implied it. Every comment suggested it. And when I called you out on it, instead of listening and learning, you doubled down and told me I was being too sensitive. Teddy, I think we both got a little heated here, Kelly said, trying desperately to regain control. Why don't we take a breath and start over? I'd love to hear about your new album. Teddy looked at her for a long moment and then slowly shook his head. No, Kelly. I don't think we can start over because starting over would mean pretending this conversation didn't happen. It would mean pretending that what you did was okay, and it's not okay. He began removing his microphone, moving with deliberate calm. What are you doing? Kelly asked, real alarm creeping into her voice. I'm leaving, Teddy said simply. I came here to share my music with your audience, but instead I got interrogated about my body. I came here to talk about my art, but instead I had to defend my worth as a human being. I came here with respect, but I'm leaving with disappointment. Kelly stood as panic broke through her composure. Teddy, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can edit this segment, start fresh. Teddy paused and looked directly at her. Kelly, the fact that your first instinct is to edit this out instead of learning from it tells me everything I need to know. This isn't about fixing a bad segment. This is about understanding why artists deserve better. He handed his microphone to a stunned audio technician and faced Kelly one last time. I hope someday you understand that when you have a platform like this, you have a responsibility to use it thoughtfully. Artists trust you with their stories, their vulnerabilities, their dreams. That trust is sacred, and today you broke it. The studio was dead silent as Teddy walked toward the exit. Teddy, please, Kelly called after him, desperation in her voice. Let's talk about this off camera. Don't leave like this. He stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back to face her, the audience and the cameras. Kelly, I've said everything I need to say. My music speaks for itself. My talent speaks for itself. And my integrity speaks for itself. I don't need to justify any of those things to anyone, especially not on a show that seems more interested in my before and after photos than my before and after songs. With that, Teddy Swims walked off the Kelly Clarkson Show, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a speechless host, and one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as Kelly stood frozen behind her desk, the weight of what had just happened slowly sinking in. The audience remained silent, processing the raw honesty they had just witnessed. What do you think about Teddy's decision to walk off? Was he right to take a stand, or should he have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories about what really happens when the cameras are rolling. Sometimes the most powerful moments come when someone decides they've had enough and chooses to stand up for what they believe in, no matter the cost.